disappointing end of the season for the guys with the
Tough.
Capitals. I think Logan Thompson has been spectacular pretty much all year. These last 3 games have been rough, and especially last night. I was listening to Brent Johnson on with the Junks this morning, and it's tough because there's a couple of goals in there that you probably don't want to give up, and you shouldn't give up. But he gives up a couple, and this offense had struggled against Carolina this entire series. And so when your goaltender's not hot, especially down the stretch of this series, and you're not scoring goals, you're in for a world of hurt, especially for a team that was kind of dominating play for a majority of the series like the Carolina Hurricanes were. But I think, this is one of those times for me when you look at a team. It reminded me kind of how the Commanders were when they were going in, where they felt like they were kind of punching above their class all year. And so when you lose in the playoffs, it's disappointing. But when you take time and like a couple of weeks and reflect, it was still a special season.
So if I'm allowed to do this, and I know it's still fresh and raw, it's almost like we just took the Band-Aid off because the season ended last night. Big picture, like, they're the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, Toby.
Yeah.
And they got bounced in the second round.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a disappointment.
It is. It definitely is.
And the way that they went out, I think is, first of all, stylistically, this was not the most favorable matchup for them. I think it was very evident from the start of this series. Carolina just a faster, more athletic team, and it showed throughout this series. So I wonder how they regroup moving forward. I think you mentioned it. Logan Thompson was not great the last couple of games of this series, but I think moving forward, like in terms of the offseason, like there should be a lot of optimism for this team. They were really active this past offseason. I think, the salary cap's going to go up again in the NHL, so they should have the opportunity once again to go out and make some moves to improve the roster. We know Alex Ovechkin's coming back. I think that conversation needs to be had about what is Alex Ovechkin's role going to be? Because in this series, and I know this is kind of what he has been known for, and he's older, but remember all the hubbub that was made when he was called a one-trick pony?
Yeah.
What was he in this series? Standing, waiting, one-trick pony.
Well, and he struggled so much because this is just a faster team. This is someone that's going to get up and down, and they're going to make you defend, and they're going to try to basically be in your D zone the entire time. And that's what the Capitals were. And that's not Ovi's specialty. And especially at this point in his career when, he's an older guy and you don't want him on the ice trying to defend the entire time. He's never been the best defender, but especially at this point in his career. And I think he's a better defender than throughout his career than what he is right now, just because of the fact that he can't be giving his all on every single shift, especially in the D zone. So it was just a tough matchup for him. Yeah. I think this Capitals season is going to be a memorable one. Obviously, we're going to remember a lot of the moments from this because Alex Ovechkin breaks the record after breaking his leg, remember? I mean, that's something that
special.
We thought might not even happen this year because of the fact that he broke his leg. He was off to such a torrid pace to open the year. Then he broke his leg, and then he comes back, and he's still on a great pace and ends up breaking the record. So that was special. And seeing this team, again, I don't know that right now is the best time for it because you're right. They were the top seed in the Eastern Conference. The way that they went out against Carolina, where Carolina really dominated the series, they win in 5 games. I mean, that's domination. That's a gentleman's sweep.
It is, especially when you think about the last 3 games, really the whole series, Toby. Like, what was the story of this thing? Their inability to get the puck in Carolina's defensive zone. Like, that was the problem. Getting in the corners, getting good offense, puck possession, shot attempts. Like, that was the story of this entire series. And moving forward, like, if you get matched up, I think after this series, you need to get younger.
They need
to get
speed.
faster.
Yeah, they need speed.
Like, there's a couple of things that kind of like stick out like a sore thumb for you. But all in all, like you said, good season. I think maybe I'm being negative Nancy here. Kind of disappointing that you get bounced in 5 in the second round after being the 1 seed.
I think it can be 2 things. And the reason it reminds me of the Commanders is we were having this discussion when it was going to the wild card game against the Buccaneers, right?
Yeah.
We were having this discussion basically saying, if they lost to the Buccaneers, is it a disappointing season? And overall, no. But you won 12 games. Yeah. You have to win a playoff game then. This team, you were the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. You won your first series and looked good against the Canadiens. And then you got pretty thoroughly dominated against the Hurricanes. And it wasn't a great series in terms of matchup, in terms of styles. but it's frankly disappointing when you're the top seed. But in a couple of weeks, when we kind of reflect, it's going to be something that we look back on as a favorable, a fun season. Coach Carberry kind of talked about that last night, 50th anniversary season and all the stuff that went into it, and then breaking the record, all that stuff. I thought Coach Carbs had a really good way of summing it up last night.
This 50th anniversary Caps team will go down in history, and I'll just speak for myself, this is one of the greatest seasons that I've ever been a part of as a coach or a player, and I'll never forget this group. But I told those guys I love them, and every single one of them, what we went through as a group this year and what they accomplished, and O's record and everything that went into this season, I will never forget this group. It really, really memorable year.
And I think it is, right? And you saw some of the guys that we weren't expecting take massive leaps. Like we obviously are going to spend a lot of time thinking about Ovechkin, but you got to remember the season that Alexi Protas had.
Yeah.
You got to remember the season that Dylan Strome had. You got to remember them trading for Pierre-Luc Dubois and people saying, what the heck are they doing? And him having 66 points on the year. Tom Wilson, first ever 30-goal season. Connor McMichael took a big step forward. Jacob Chikrin went from a newly acquired defenseman to someone they locked up long-term and looks like a staple of the future Capitals post-Ovi era. Like the guys that they had this year that you had some expectations for or no expectations for, frankly, for some of the guys, took big steps. And then it was encouraging seeing some of the guys down the stretch, like a Ryan Leonard. I know he didn't have the most impact in the stat sheet,
right?
But if you just watched him play, you saw the encouragement there from the young guy, and they've got some young prospects coming through the system as well that are going to be really good players. I think what this team has done a really good job of is setting themselves up to still win because they were the top seed in the Eastern Conference, like we already laid out. And whenever Ovi is done, if it's after next season, if he continues to play a little bit longer, whatever the decision is for Ovi, he can play as long as he wants. I think that they're going to they've set themselves up to be good for a long time. So credit to this front office. It was a fun season, disappointing end though.
Yeah, I think the growth in development of some of the young pups, as you mentioned, was a big bright spot this season as well. The other part was this. They liked each other a lot. It's a good group that's got chemistry. I think Coach Carbs, deserves a ton of credit too for, getting this group to play at the level that they did and helping cultivate, that relationship that was able to be formed in that locker room. You heard it each and every game. It was one of the main talking points during the regular season. It's just how much these guys like each other. And it's hard because, especially when you underachieve and you really like the guys around you, it makes it sting a little bit more because you really feel like you let your guys down. But they'll be back. They'll be back. They'll have money to spend this offseason. They were active last offseason. You got some building blocks here moving forward. As you mentioned, getting Chikrin, signed long-term. You got Logan Thompson signed to an extension. Protas. A lot to feel good about. I think the main thing, though, is adding speed this offseason. How can you do that? How can you, keep pace atop the Eastern Conference? Can you replicate, this year's success next year? Because let's be real. I think based off the offseason they were way more active than they had been in years past. There was an expectation that they'd be better this year. I don't think anybody thought they'd get the one
exactly
seed.
Right.
So they definitely outkicked their coverage if you're looking at it big picture, but you kind of are what you are, right? We were all geeked up and excited about it. You were competing with Winnipeg all year long to try to have the best record in all of hockey. So this is a good team, and they're going to have a lot of these guys coming back next year. Who do they got to re-sign? That's the one thing I was not.
Yeah, I'd have to look at their contract. One guy that has been locked up long-term is Logan Thompson. I want to hear from him in just a second. I knew there was a reason, though, why I really like Logan Thompson. So this year he was 31-6-6 as a goalie, 249 goals against average. Guess how many saves he had on the season?
How many?
106.7. 1,067.
There we go. He's our guy.
Credit to LT. LT spoke last night after the game, though. I mean, disappointing result for him, especially last couple of games. He was a little disappointed in himself, said he could have made some more saves.
Credit to Freddy Anderson. I thought he was a better goalie this series. I think I could have been better and made a couple saves in Raleigh and definitely tonight. And yeah, it sucks. It's a good team. So tip your hat to them.
I felt so bad for him because he'd had a really good season, and he kind of took a step down after the Four Nations, but you saw after that goal went in with just over a minute to go, his head sank. And
maybe one of the first times we've seen him actually show visible signs of being discouraged.
And it's unfair to blame it all on one person, but you could tell that he felt it was all on him.
Yeah.
And like, look, that's a goal that can't go in, frankly. It can't.
No.
That's one that you've got to save, but it's unfair to blame it all on him, and it felt like he took it all on his shoulders. But LT, if you're listening, we appreciate you, man.
100%. This is the thing, right? And it's hard when you do not play your best in the biggest moments. He was a rock star all year long.
Absolutely.
Like one of the best 4 or 5 goalies in all of the NHL this year. And this series was rough for him. The ironic part in the Montreal series, think about it, comes back, he was banged up, ended up being awesome. So it's tough. He is one of the, we talk about bright spots moving forward. He is definitely one of them for sure.
Well, and he was the X factor in the series for me because you knew that Carolina, the way that they were going to play, they were going to throw a lot of shots on the net. They were going to do the thing that they do, where they're going to just shoot the puck a lot and see what happens.
Yeah.
And the factor that kind of evened things out for me was if Washington had the hotter goaltender. And look, I think Freddy Anderson was good in this series. There's no doubt about it.
Very volatile, though.
They also, they also didn't test him enough. Versus
not enough shot attempts.
Logan Thompson was thoroughly tested the entire series, even shots that weren't getting to the net. You know, he's just constantly on guard because they were always in the zone. So it was just a tough series. And to your point earlier about getting some more speed, I think this Capitals team matched up well with just about everybody, except Carolina.
Totally.
And so I think what they need to do is they need to add some speed. They need to add some stuff specifically to stop Carolina. Even if they trotted out just about the same roster that they had this year, which they will for the most part, they can make a couple additions. I think those couple additions have to be thought towards how do we beat Carolina? Because if you get the same sort of play from a majority of your guys, you're going to be in a similar type spot, but you have to be able to beat Carolina where you just look thoroughly dominated, even though you were one of the best teams in hockey all year.
So one of the free agents is Anthony Beauvillier, who they acquired near the deadline. So he is actually a free agent heading into this offseason. He was pretty good for them down the stretch.
Tobi was awesome, man.
So that's a guy you got to worry about locking up long term. But yeah, to your point, it's, and I hate that we always bring everything back to football, but damn it, it's king. It's like Washington this offseason was about how can you maximize Jaden Daniels, but how can you beat Philly? I think if you're the Caps, you're looking at Carolina as like the blueprint. Yeah, they weren't the best team during the regular season, but they closed out the season really strong, and they've got the blueprint as to how you want to play in today's day and age in hockey. They've got speed, they've got size, they're physical. That's the other thing that kind of disappointed me a little bit about this series. Think about all of the hubbub leading up to this thing about the regular season matchups between these two teams and what happened to Connor McMichael. There was all this talk about how physical this series was going to be. If you're looking at it from a physicality standpoint, Washington should be embarrassed. They got punked, it felt like, essentially, in this series. Carolina was the big bad wolf, so to speak. They consistently blew our house down. That sounded weird. It felt weird to say. I'll be real. But yeah, like, that was the one thing I was kind of disappointed in. I wanted to see them, show some more toughness, some more grit.
And it never manifested that way. It was disappointing from that sense because if you just watched this series and didn't know any history, you wouldn't know that these two teams hate each other, and yet they do.
You'd think Carolina was the number 1 seed if you took the seeds off of the way they played. So